giving me remove from okay, I'm removing LinkedIn. It's giving me some sort of things. Bullshit. It's just Facebook and YouTube. All right, we're live. We are live. Hey, Susan.
Hi, Liam. How is Gay Paris?
It's very gay and is very Perry. Okay, so let's listen to Tony.
Let's do it. Get my notes ready.
What is
That's everything. Because a government's job is to protect people, or at least get out of the way, and clearly not to protect the companies that are harming us. So this is finally starting to happen. We're in the middle of it, and it's a revolution. Many of our guests today are part of that revolution. They're in the front lines, dismantling the corruption, producing real science in the interest of the American people. They're the leaders in public health, kids, incredible allies in the MAHA movement, all of us. So you'll hear from Dr. Mehmet Oz, Callie Means, Riley Gaines, Zach Lane, Russell Brand, Dr. Eric Berg, and Jack Barry, the MAHA kid. But first we're joined by Admiral Brian Christine, and he's the Assistant Secretary for Health at HHS, and he also leads the U.S. Public Health Service Commission Corps. He's focused primarily on public health priorities, including chronic disease prevention, and improving the overall health of Americans. Welcome, Admiral Christine.
Tony, thank you for having me on. Really appreciate that. And listen, everything you're saying is so true. When you talk about corporate interest and when you talk about greed, it's absolutely true. And we have seen an example of that with the report that we released last week from HHS entitled Wolves in White Coats. And what that's looking at was the financial incentives, the greed that led so-called gender-affirming clinics to perform sex-rejecting procedures using castrating chemicals and mutilating surgeries on minors with gender dysphoria. Again, we show in our report how there was truly a financial incentive to lead these vulnerable children down a pathway of these sex-rejecting procedures. So you're right, we see these corporate interests, we see the greed, we see the harm that it does to the overall health of our country, and this is an example of where greed can lead in terms of harming these vulnerable children. So thanks for having me on today.
all right? They're going in heavy. They're talking about some heavy-duty issues here. Susan, what are your thoughts? Oh, hold on. I got to unmute you, Sammy. Okay, go ahead.
There we go. Thank you. So the transgender stuff is interesting, obviously super controversial. One of the things that I'll say is that there was a clip that circulated some years back. It was from Vanderbilt Hospital, and the person who was being filmed knew she was being filmed. She was the, I want to say CEO, she could have been a medical doctor, I'm not sure, but she knew she was being filmed. She was talking to the doctors and nurses who were gathered. She said, I know a lot of you are upset about doing transgender surgery on minors, and I'm going to tell you right now, if you're not on board, you need to find another job. She didn't stop there. She did not even pretend that it was about, we need to help children because we want to do the right thing. She said, think about it, people. This is a moneymaker. If you have somebody who's transgender, they need hormones for the rest of their lives. If you do the surgery when they are minors, you've got a customer for the rest of their life. In addition to the fact, of course, that the surgery itself is tremendously lucrative for the hospital. So she just came right out and said it, knowing she was being filmed. It circulated around the internet. I've not looked for it recently to see if anybody took it down or not, but clearly there's a financial incentive.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just a whole, minors, confused, teenage years. It's just an incredibly tragic story. Let's see. There's
One last thing real quick is that I think the tide really shifted. That there was, in the springtime, I think it was, there was a court case where a detransitioner sued the doctor who performed a mastectomy when this person was, I'm going to say, 16, 15, I don't remember how old. The lawsuit was decided in favor of the detransitioner, the plaintiff. And the very next day, there were two organizations, and I forget which medical organizations they were, who changed their position on transgender, or at least modified and softened their position on surgery in minors and said, let's slow it down a bit. Let's put some brakes on, as some European countries have done.
Yeah, man. If you take it to the extreme in terms of language, it's like mutilation. Yep. Child mutilation.
Right. I mean, let's go back to Mr. Lyons, or Dr. Lyons, rather.
Dr. Lyons. Let's give him some audio.
Republican candidate for the for governor of Iowa, and his policies focus on helping families and farmers and protecting them from corporate corruption, corporate control. So MAHA Action endorsed Zach in December, and he's just the poster child for MAHA. He's hoping, and we really hope, that he makes Iowa a blueprint for the rest of the country. And so he's just such a good man, such a fighter. He really wants to improve the health of all the children, not only in his state, but to show other states how they should be doing it. So welcome, Zach. Great to have you on. Zach, we can't hear you.
There we go. Hey, thanks for having me on, Tony, and thanks to all the MAHA folks who have been supporting me since the beginning. It's been an honor to be in this fight. I'll tell you, I just about to go to the Iowa State Fair, and while I try to be MAHA as much as I can, you get an exception and exemption when you go to the state fair in Iowa. So we have to be reasonable here on some of our movement. And so, yeah, I'll just tell you guys, I had a really great event actually yesterday. Bobby Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. was out to Iowa, and we actually got to go fishing for a little bit. So that was a pretty big moment. And he did catch more fish than me. I will just admit that right now. But I'll tell you, we're seeing across the country, especially in our state, that people are understanding the power of the MAHA movement. I really see it. We're hearing about it. Even some of the people on the other side are ramping up their attacks against the whole movement and agenda. And what people really don't realize, I think, is that this has been a movement since before it had a name, and before it had people that were giving it the power that it's been given nationally. And we're very thankful to those people. Many of them are on this call right now, and some of a lot of them are speakers. But in Iowa, we're trying to lead on is to be a state that is helping to make sure we have healthier kids, that we have healthy food in our schools. I actually had an opportunity to meet with Secretary Brooke Rollins just a couple weeks ago about changing a few regulations in the USDA to allow more food grown in the state of Iowa to be served in our public schools. My goal as governor is to get to a point where we have 80% of the food served in our public schools comes directly from the state of Iowa. Right now we have very, very little, actually very little. We have the best farmland in the world in Iowa, and we import 95% of our food. And so we should flip that on its head. We really should be leading Iowa. I would like Iowa to be the real food capital of the country. And it starts with, large levers that we can pull. And I hope other states will do this as well. I know that some other states are even leading on this, but we should start in our public schools to help those kids get good, healthy, nutrient-dense foods that help with focus, that helps with reducing chronic diseases. It helps with reducing autoimmune conditions. And so I think we can do that as a state. I want Iowa to lead on that, create that blueprint for us, the country. I also think there's a lot of discussion around different issues that are coming up in each state. And that is, we look at these data centers popping up all over the place, and many states are giving them, tremendous tax incentives and tax breaks. I'm actually calling to end all of those tax incentives and breaks. And I'd like to actually repurpose those to start incentive programs for Iowa's family farms, to start treating them as entrepreneurial activities and start helping them to transition to other types of agriculture, and start with grass-fed beef or things like that would help more diversify their operations, help them make more money, serve their communities better, and also have an option to find new markets. And so we can do that on our farm right now. We're growing corn, soybeans, oats, alfalfa, and we just started growing einkorn because my wife likes to make sourdough bread and pasta and pancakes. And I'll tell you, just from posting a couple videos online, the amount of people looking for these products that are, not using any inputs whatsoever, it's tremendous. We have a lot of people out there looking for this, and we have the best soil in the country. And I want Iowa to lead on providing this diversification and these alternatives for those farmers that would like to make the switch. And I think there's a lot out there that are looking for it right now. I think that this all goes into the whole goal of making the next generation far more healthy than the generations that have come before, and that we can lead in helping to reduce this chronic disease burden that we're seeing across the country and in our state. And I'm just very thankful for the entire MAHA movement, all you guys have done. And I would just say my last thing is, we just have to stick to our guns here. We have to, advocate for what we know is true and what we believe in, and don't let up an inch, because we know that the fight is far too important. That what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is doing for the future of our kids is going to have generational impact, and we're the ones on the ground. And I think that with that, we can, see a time in our country where far more people are living long, healthy, prosperous lives, and our rural communities are thriving. So with that, I just, again, thank you all. I'm looking forward to seeing you on the trail. If you're here in Iowa, come to the Iowa State Fair, and would love to have you all supporting the campaign and helping us win here in Iowa and make a blueprint for the nation on how we can, really prioritize the next generation. Thank you so much.
From transgender craziness to family farms, they seem to be going in a very broad realm here. What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, you can't go wrong starting with the food. And you can't go wrong cleaning up school cafeterias, because when you can't get into people's homes and mandate what they eat or what their children eat, you can have such an influence, because the kids can't purchase food that is not available in the cafeteria. So if you remove the trans fats, if you drastically reduce the white sugar, if you make sure that you have some entrees available that are appealing, if you have snacks available that are dried fruit and nuts and fresh fruit, they will eat this stuff. There is nothing wrong with hummus and crackers. I've seen kids eat them and enjoy them. So I am all about cleaning up the food in the cafeterias. No more ice cream for breakfast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sometimes MAHA has themes, and they stick to one thing, but they seem to be working around a lot of different sort of a global MAHA sort of theme here. Let's see what they bring in next. Is it going to be transgender, family farms,
or is it ibogaine? Because I saw something about dusting off a 1960s grant or something or other about bringing ibogaine to veterans with PTSD. And I was thinking they were going to talk about that, but we'll see.
Prices, which are the most feared part of the healthcare bill, because people have to pay out of pocket for so much of it. In fact, when you go to a drugstore, there's about a 1 in 3 chance, if you're getting a prescription medication that's a branded product, that you're going to walk away empty-handed because you can't afford it. And so we began negotiating aggressively about a year ago for what's called most favored nation pricing, which, as the name might indicate, is that we are no longer going to tolerate global freeloading. We're going to insist that whatever price drug companies use to sell overseas should be the same price here. We're not price fixing. You pick the price if you're a pharmaceutical executive, but whatever you're going to charge the German people or the English people, you need to charge the American people. In fact, the crazy thing is that our most impoverished Americans often have to pay drug prices that are higher than folks who are affluent in other countries. President said, no mas, not going to do that anymore. And the medication prices that we were able to negotiate, including things like the GLP-1 fat shot, as the president calls it, are dramatically cheaper than they were a year ago. In fact, if you're over the age of 65 and you qualify, it's only $50 a month to get these medications. They used to be $1,200 a month. Now, what has that actually done to drug prices? Well, we just got the data back, and the Consumer Price Index is down for the last 6 months over 6%. Drug prices dropped 6% in the last 6 months. They're down over 3% for the last year. That, my friends, is the largest drop in drug prices in 63 years. Now, I want to go back and try to examine what was going on 63 years ago, because Bobby's uncle was president back then. And many of you who are old enough will remember thalidomide. Thalidomide was this medication that was ostensibly given to help with things like morning sickness, but it turned out to be responsible for birth defects. It was never allowed widely in this country, but overseas caused lots of problems. And there was so much political pressure when this medication was seen to be dangerous that the FDA was allowed, listening carefully, for the first time to insist that medications not only be safe, but they had to be effective. Now, that might seem like a bizarre thing to insist that a pharmaceutical company would have to do, but prior to 1963, it wasn't that evident that you actually had to show your medication worked. By the way, you could advertise and make claims that were false, and all that got cleaned up in 63, and that led to a dramatic drug price reduction over the next year. And so similarly, the big things we've done today are seismic in nature, reshuffle the deck, insist that there's parity and fairness in the way these services are now being offered. And that is going to allow us to I think, harvest some of these savings. Now, the National Economic Council has estimated that we're going to save about $600 million, $600 billion over the next 10 years because of these negotiated drug prices. And so it's not just we're going to enjoy a drop in prices this year, but we should see a sustained reduction in how fast prices were increasing across the board in the medication space. And it's one of several places we're going to have to play a role in government to try to drive prices back towards a reasonable level. The drug prices are a good example, but medication prices and medical prices in general should increase at the rate of the gross national product increases. You know, we should be growing our country and then paying more in order to keep our people healthy. It shouldn't be that we have to spend twice as much on healthcare coverage than our people can make in their salaries. That's not sustainable. And so I'm very happy about this new development. That combined with aggressive approaches towards some of the fraud, waste, and abuse that we've been witnessing together are going to be able to save this country a lot of money. We estimate about $100 billion a year on the fraud side alone. And I highlight that because we're still suffering in America with a lot of people getting taken advantage of, many times by foreign multinational groups who are willing to steal from the most vulnerable. I mean, who steals from the poor? It's bizarre that we would have come to this place, but the corruption that results when you allow people to defraud our most vulnerable is difficult to harness. You can't put a noose around that and pull it away. You got to actually stomp it out. And that's what we've been forced to do, taking very aggressive action with national moratoriums on the ability of new companies to enter some of these businesses. We just have too much fraud happening. And under Secretary Kennedy and President Trump, we've been able to aggressively address some of these things through the anti-fraud task force. So across the board, we're in a pretty good place. Very optimistic that we're beginning to get our arms around some of the affordability issues in healthcare. And all that combined with a MAHA movement that gets people healthy enough that they don't require expensive care as much is a good 1-2 punch to bring affordability back into the mainstream. Thanks. Back to you, Tony.
Too much fraud. Too much fraud.
That was really interesting because when he said you have to show that your medicine is safe and effective, that's news to me, the effective part. But I guess what it goes to is the cleverness of the pharmaceutical industry at manipulating things. So, for example, with infertility clinics, you see it all the time. They strongly encourage women who are not pregnant after a given number of go-rounds to move on because they want to be able to boast a higher success rate. Clinical trials for TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, which is a depression treatment and anxiety treatment that is now covered by insurance. Early clinical trials, they excluded the people who had severe depression so that it had a better chance of working. So, even straight up antidepressants. In the drug trials that are run by the very companies that produce the med, only ever outperform placebo by 13%, which is not much.
Yes, it's crazy. It's just the
I'm thinking you need me to talk, Liam. I'm thinking, so people, we have to give Liam grace. Liam is doing a first ever. I think it's a first ever for him and possibly, I don't want to get too lofty and say in the industry as a whole, but he's sitting in Paris. I'm sitting in Pennsylvania. MAHA people are sitting in DC and you're sitting in your living room and he's trying to make us all be together. So my job is to babble.
With my camera not working. Oh my God.
Liam, adapt got you. I've got you. If
all
it's
my-
one thing Susan
all
Moroto
my,
can do, it is
laugh
talk, baby.
tracks,
All right.
all the
So,
explosions and
preview of
everything.
things to come. One thing I've got for you after the official meeting concludes today is I put up the voluntary reporting form so that you or anyone you know or love can report any adverse drug events to the FDA. I have that very much on my brain, number one, because it's always on my brain, but number two, Lindsay Clancy. So Lindsay Clancy, I don't think anybody is going to argue, not even her very own providers, that she wasn't suffering from ill effects from the drugs. We know that adverse drug events are now the third leading cause of death in our country. That used to be the fourth, but a 2025 article in Practical Neurology boosted it up. New analysis, third. And that's with the vast majority not being reported. Looks like Liam has worked magic. Round of applause for Liam.
Thank you. Russell Brand in the house.
Incredible
Russell Brand.
looks. Didn't he look remarkably handsome there, Doctor Oz? Every inch the doctor that America fell in love with. TV's most handsome doctor. I mean, but Dr. Drew, pretty good looking. Dr. Phil, not bad. I mean, Eric Berg, we got Eric Berg now. I mean, there's some hunky doctors out there. But when it comes to female beauty, both of an internal spiritual, but also of a rather more superficial nature, we need look no further than Liana Werner Gray, who joins me, your MAHA friend, who's just been on my show.
Oh, hello, everyone. Surprise. Just had a fantastic time reporting with Russell for his show today.
It went very well, I thought.
Awesome. People came for healing.
Yes, and what I really enjoyed about what Liana's offering, Tony, and I remember this as being something that's fundamental, pivotal, even essential to the MAHA movement, is what is the spiritual crisis that would lead the world's most powerful and glorious nation to create institutions that are poisoning people through their food, that are making people sicker through their medicines. And we kind of touched a little bit on that, didn't we, Liana? The sort of spiritual essence of it. Can you tell a little bit to our beloved friend Tony so that he gets the benefit, even though, I mean, he's getting better by the second. Isn't he become a great host, Tony, now?
Tony, you are amazing. We gave you a shout out on the show today, too. So we were talking about the enemy and how the enemy is contaminating everything, our food, our water, our air, even our clothing, and just how we can armor up. And I've talked about this on MAHA before, about how we can detox every single day. Drink bentonite clay because parasites hate it and it absorbs heavy metals. Drink chlorophyll every day. But the spiritual aspect too, what I find in my teaching is what's missing is the Holy Spirit. And when people give their life to Jesus, the Holy Spirit comes in to live in their body. And that's the same Spirit that rose Jesus from the dead after 3 days. And it's the same Spirit that lives in us that heals us. And it really is a missing link to so many people who are seeking healing. So having God be our healer and then also taking the things that God created for us during this time, we can heal and thrive no matter how contaminated the enemy is trying to destroy us. And I'm also over here just trying to feed Russell some beef sticks and some chlorophyll water as well. So we're hitting it from all angles, spiritual and...
It's perfectly okay for Liana to offer me a meat stick, but if we tried it the other way around, I would probably add that to my court case in October. I noticed, my friend, that Secretary Kennedy has restored the presidential fitness test, and it's good to see that Secretary Kennedy is making moves that have a demonstrable impact on health. I was also heartened, and like I know a lot of you on this call know more about this than I do, about the billions of dollars being dedicated to addiction. Now, like I know that addiction in particular is that aspect of illness. And I know where you've really helped educate me, Liana, is help me to understand that all forms of sickness have a spiritual component by nature.
Yeah, all sickness, disease comes from the enemy. It does not come from God. And we should hate it.
Well, do you know what's interesting about that is because I was about to say that like addiction is by its nature a spiritual disease, and it has at its core selfishness. Like before you become an addict, you are selfish. Some people don't like to hear that, but it means that you literally are kind of worshiping yourself, even if you simultaneously hate yourself. So what?
Spirit of rejection, too, can lead to addiction.
How do you
Spirit
mean?
of rejection usually comes in when we go through something hard in our life. When in childhood, some kind of trauma, we feel rejection. The spirit of rejection comes from the enemy, and that leads to majority of addiction that I've found in my clients working with people, they have the spirit of rejection there. So we work with that on a spiritual level to get that out. Then the addiction goes away.
Well, I tell you one person who we cannot allow to even for a second feel the spirit of rejection. That is one of the administration's great victories the glorious, the never less than beautiful, a man that I take great pleasure from introducing. Once I did an event in DC, Liana, and I gave Cali Means an introduction that he said, I don't want to talk anymore because I bigged him up to a ridiculous degree. But one does wonder what's going on in the Means household. How many Means children are there? We've had Callie, we've had Casey. Are there going to be like a Jackson 5 of Means children? And which one is Michael, for good or for real? I'm going to hand back to our beloved patron, friend, and publisher, the incomparable, eloquent, and handsome. Looks like a hero from a Western like Tombstone. Could be a kind of Kurt Russell, Doc Holliday anti-hero. Thank you, Tony, for the support and love that you give us. We both of us are very devoted.
Yes, thank you, Tony. We love you.
Okay, before the man. All right, I have to.
You want me to let you work on your CPUs, Liam? I'll just talk for a bit.
The man with a hair testicle. Before he started talking about the meat stick, okay, he said something crazy. He said,
"Okay,
how could the greatest country in the world, right, like come up with all this evil?" I thought that was, and then he went into the meat stick and stuff like. You know, that was a pretty interesting comment.
It is a good question. I mean, like, the human capacity for good is amazing, and I guess the human capacity for evil is amazing. I don't know what to say. I really don't. One thing that intrigues me
is it like the greater capacity for good? Does that translate to the greater capacity for evil? Like the more that you love and the more that you care, creates a defensive mechanism to create negativity, and I don't know.
I don't know. The only thing I know is that in our cancer culture today, the tendency is to find out that somebody did one bad thing and they're dead to me. And I'm not excusing anybody's bad thing, but you end up throwing out the baby with the bathwater because often that person has also done some good things. And I don't know why and I don't want to get into anybody's religious beliefs, but I think an awful lot of religions, the idea is that the deity, your God, your Buddha, your Allah, is the one who's perfect. And the rest of us have an expectation that we are inherently flawed. So why do we expect the other guy to not have flaws? And we basically want to do the 21st century version of the lynching and the whatever else they did when they're not perfect. I don't know. And again, not excusing anybody's bad deeds, but humans are a mix.
That's very true. Okay, Casey Means is up. Shall we see what he has to say?
Yeah.
Hey, Kelly, we can't hear you yet.
Hey, Tony. Just saying, you got to stop putting me after Russell. It's a tough act to follow. But I was just thinking back.
Yeah, nobody can win.
When this whole movement was starting a couple of years ago, I had the opportunity to go out to Wales. And Russell in rural Wales had this incredible event he threw every year. And it was thousands and thousands of people. A lot of them in recovery. The entire focus of the event was wellness. There were talks on spirituality, talks on healthy eating, talks on medical freedom. And almost every person I met, Russell had helped personally. He has a hotline that they can call for help for people in need. It was one of the most inspiring things I've ever seen. So, Russell, love you, man. And thank you for putting all this great energy in the world. Back then, a couple of years ago, I don't think we could have imagined where we'd be today. And, as we always talk about, this is existential things we're fighting for. And Bobby Kennedy is up against huge forces. I'll tell you, having the opportunity to see Bobby Kennedy on the inside every day, he is my hero. I have two kids, to answer your question, Russell. And I think what Bobby Kennedy is demonstrating are the attributes I pray that my kids have when they grow up. He is fearless. He's some of the mission. I mean, he's carrying this forward through his own sheer force of will and moral authority because he's right. And he obviously is going up against a ton of forces. There's trillions of dollars still that are dependent on Americans being sick. And that's felt every day. Recently, we had an event at HHS where we celebrated wins on the food issue in particular. And I really think it's worth repeating what we've done in the past 18 months. Before we came in 18 months ago, soda was the top item on food stamps. And Bobby asked me and others to come up with a list of, the most ambitious policies we could do on food. And we suggested that. And everyone told us we were crazy. This is the top priority of the food industry, right? The soda industry alone is getting $15 billion a year from the federal treasury to subsidize soda for lower income kids to get them addicted. I mean, what an incredible thing that they're getting. This is a material part of soda companies' revenue on public earnings reports. There's no way this is going to happen. Just 18 months later, we have 30 states, the majority of states in the country, that have independently, through Bobby's leadership, said that soda and candy is no longer going to be on SNAP. And the USDA, for the first time, has approved those waivers. People told us there was zero way we would be able to, in the dietary guidelines, say don't eat ultra-processed food, don't eat refined carbohydrates, don't eat, really limit added sugar. These things are important and obvious public health messages, but the reason these obvious points haven't been in U.S. dietary guidance is because the U.S. government spends hundreds of billions of dollars on food a year. And when you put those messages in the dietary guidelines, that flows to hundreds and billions of dollars of food. That's a big, big deal. This is one of the biggest procurement areas in the U.S. government. So people said there was no way we were going to do that. And through Bobby's will, through the coalition he put together, we were able to talk to the food industry who came in, and they made a very direct argument. They said, if you recommend against sugar, if you recommend against refined carbohydrates, if you recommend against highly processed food, it's going to hurt our sales. And we're going to sell less soda. And I could tell that argument carried water until the Trump administration. And what I felt when we're working through this policy is we had air cover from President Trump and Secretary Kennedy to do the right thing. Because what Bobby Kennedy has shown is doing the right thing is also the right politics. Because he's shown that we now have an army of people behind us who are voting and caring about this issue, that are part of the coalition that brought President Trump to power. And now we can unabashedly do the right thing. And we were able to have dietary guidelines that had zero industry influence whatsoever. And that's now showing fruit. I mean, we just went to a military base. They are revamping the military food services in bases across the country, ripping out the processed food, service, and they're cooking fresh salmon, they're cooking steak, they're cooking, beautiful handmade salads. And actually, it's not even a budget increase. They're able to do this for the same amount they were spending on ultra-processed food. We talked about the grass regulation and released that. Let's be very clear. This is the most significant food regulation. It's a regulation in the past 30 years. And some of our conservative friends, I'm a conservative, said, wait, we're not regulatory. Well, we don't see this as a new regulation. We see this as fixing the perversion, the corporate capture of a previous regulation that has created a system where 95% of food ingredients have zero oversight and the FDA doesn't even know about them. This isn't over-regulatory or under-regulatory. The intention of our food safety processes is the FDA has a list of what's in our food and is able to ask for safety information and conduct safety reviews. We do not have that standing here today. But now we did this common sense, no-brainer thing where when there is a new ingredient in our food supply, the FDA is going to know about it and they're going to be able to look into the safety of it. And for the 10,000 ingredients that are in our food that are banned in every other country in the developed world, the FDA is now going to be able to have a list of those ingredients and conduct safety studies of whether these ingredients that are banned in other countries are safe in our children's food supply. It started with the food dyes that are in 60% of children's food in the United States. 60% of children's food have food dyes. These are banned in every other country. They're clearly neurotoxic. They're made of crude oil. We were under a regime where we were told, no, trust us, those are safe. We're not going to show you any safety studies. That's changing. That's a big deal. There's so much work left to do, but that's just one example on the food issue. We've done things that several years ago were thought impossible. The Democrats are absolutely losing their minds. They're having a mental breakdown. They haven't been helping us at all. They've been obstructing everything. And frankly, I think it's very clear, who is imperfectly, and it's obviously imperfect. I mean, we've got major stakes here, but what side is fighting hard for these issues, I think is clear. Thank you.
Bobby Kennedy once said, if all the skeletons in my closet could vote, I would be president for life.
I wish he would be. I do. I like it. That would be.
This idea that he has all these skeletons and all this bad history. So does it take what he's doing is sort of attacking this demon force, which is, just completely attacking our food supply. Does it take somebody who knows demons to fight the demons? That's my questions.
And his heart's in the right place. His second wife committed suicide. So all the suicide prevention stuff that you and I have been very vocal advocates for, coming at it as many ways as possible. I'm thrilled that he's just a breath of fresh air, and just the common sense. Get the red dye out. Is anybody really like that upset? They really miss their red dye, and the beet juice dye isn't doing it for them.
Yeah, and he's what the last segment said was, it's we're gonna lose money if we put the sugar out or whatever, we're gonna lose money. And they said Trump kind of gave the green light and said, figure out a way to make money.
Figure out a way. And this is what's interesting, is that public schools have certain, whatever the federal regs are, that if kids are accessing a federally funded lunch, there has to be an entree on the tray. Private schools don't have any such laws or regulations restricting them from doing whatever they want. So the private schools in which the school is getting a cut of what the food service is selling, you see a very different food option arrangement than in the schools where they are not getting a cut of what the food service provider is earning.
Yeah, making profit is one thing, but making profit, over concerning the health of people just has a specifically horrific quality to it.
Right. I mean, because it's not just a matter of a few pounds. You are setting people up for a lifetime of chronic disease, and we're already seeing it. I forget the statistic, but it's either like 48 or 52% of kids now have a chronic disease. If you start with that stuff when you're 8 or 10 or 14, God help you when you are 30. And we're seeing that, Liam, up until you're in my generation, each generation lived longer and with better health than the generation before it. And now that trend is reversing, where people are getting sick and dying younger, and we're seeing chronic diseases in younger folks. Shall we go back to our
Shall we go back to the show?
Let's do it.
All through our lives, it's toxic. And we need to fix that. And Dr. Berg is helping us do that. So thank you, Dr. Berg, and welcome.
Thanks so much, Tony. I really appreciate it, because today I want to talk about one of the chapters in this book, which has to do with chemicals, and that piggybacks on what Callie said, but with grass, or you can call it gross, whatever you want to call it. But there's this. So for those of you that don't know what this is, it's a massive loophole. It's been going on since 1958. And it stands for generally recognized as safe. Okay. So this was initially created for just for household ingredients like salt and vinegar. Of course, over time, corporate capture came in and the system changed completely. So now companies on their own accord can say that their own synthetic chemicals are safe with no independent review and no real testing for long-term hormone damage. So that's why I'm so excited about what RFK is doing now, because to be able to test these chemicals to really show people they're probably not safe. And I'm going to explain something very specifically why I say that, because you're talking about 10,000 chemicals that are in our food supply, packaging, everyday products. And maybe they're going to check to see if they're going to create some poisoning immediately, but they definitely, from my knowledge, looking at this, they're not looking at the mess that the a child's endocrine system, it's going to end up being a problem the next 20 years, like long-term safety studies. So very few people really understand also why these chemicals mess with our hormones. So that's what I want to just mention. It's very, very simple. But here's the thing you need to know. Like estrogen is a very specific chemical shape. Estrogen is like one of the oldest hormones, and it's a very simple shape. It's like a little ring. It's called a phenyl ring. That's the shape of estrogen. Think about like a key that just fits right into the estrogen receptor lock. So here's the problem. That exact same phenyl structure, that little ring, happens to be also the cheapest, most common building block in modern industrial chemicals.
So this is
why like BPA in plastic, phenyl ring, preservatives
in
cosmetics, phenyl ring, synthetic fragrances, pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, other types of plastics, all are built on this phenyl ring. So basically, this is why they call them xenoestrogens, because they can mimic estrogen. That's what's happening right now. So we have this huge toxic estrogen soup that we're swimming in, especially children as well. And this has been going on for quite some time, but it's actually getting worse and worse and worse. So the body doesn't know the difference between the natural and the chemical coding thermal grocery receipts that fits right into that lock. So it turns it on like a switch. So these foreign estrogens accumulate in the body fat. And so when we see girls going through their puberty a lot earlier than before, you know what's happening. But even like boys, very young in the developmental stages, are showing all sorts of disruption in hormones, unfortunately. So across our population, the sperm counts are down by like 50%. Testosterone has crashing in many people around the country and around the world. So estrogen dominance is behind that. The tiny daily exposures accumulate in the fat, and then they mess with your hormones. And this is why the MAHA movement is so important in asking these questions that we should have asked decades ago. Like, why are these compounds in our body? Where are they coming from? Why are we allowing this loophole? And why would anyone fight just to have safety studies for these chemicals? So we owe it to our children for a clean environment and test their hormones actually like they matter, because they do matter. Thank you very much, Tony.
I don't hear it either.
We're in a toxic soup of estrogen.
There we go.
That explains everything.
Right? Doesn't it though? I mean, yeah. Well, and here's the other thing. Each chemical is only looked at in isolation. It is not looked at in conjunction with all the other ones. Newborn babies are born with close to 300 man-made chemicals already in their system. And they're not looked at in conjunction with other stressors, whether that stressor is electromagnetic frequencies, whether it is mercury, whether it is emotional stress, whether, whatever it is. So you can't just look at something in isolation and check the box that says it's safe when you haven't looked at it the way it exists in real life in our bodies, which is interplaying with a whole lot of other variables all at once.
And it's crazy. I was saying, the petroleum things, the mimic estrogen, and how we're just in this avalanche of estrogen.
So we're in an avalanche of estrogen. And then, Liam, to get back to what you were saying about the transgender stuff, remember when we met farmer Mark Dudlaw of Dudlaw Farms, which was a guy, right? So he was the one that put it on my radar that atrazine, which is a pesticide, if you place a frog, and frogs come in the boy form and the girl form, if you put a frog in atrazine, it will switch genders. It will turn a boy frog into a girl frog and vice versa. And we're eating it. So
that's, very classic Alex Jones. They're making the frogs gay. They're making the frogs gay. Yeah. it's true, but it's true.
I mean,
But
they're not
it's
necessarily
true,
making them
yeah.
gay, but they are making them switch genders. And we are seeing a lot of hormonal disruption and gender dysphoria. So I don't know. I think it's worth looking at.
Yeah, I wonder what would it be like if there was a avalanche of testosterone. What would the world?
Well, okay, so the military is now having testosterone testing for all of the men because testosterone levels are so low. And by the way, women, we need to get our testosterone checked too because we can be low. We need it too. So.
Absolutely. Okay, looks like Riley Gaines.
All right, Riley Gaines.
Right.
Let's do it.
House.
Mission of confronting chronic disease, reforming dietary guidelines, reducing the influence of big pharma and big food on our health. So really just a MAHA human being. Thank you, Riley, and great to have you on. Riley, we can't hear you yet.
Let's see. How about now? I may be like the most Gen Z on here, but even still, I am technologically inept. Look, it's really good to be on with you guys. I will say, after listening to both Callie and Dr. Berg, I feel quite unqualified after listening to the phenol structure and different things. So I just want to approach today, even studying chemistry in college and getting my degree in that, I just want to approach today as someone who has personal experience and the things that I have found beneficial to me as a woman as it pertains to health and fitness and wellness in every stage of life. Now, especially, I think, as a mom. So prior to conception, throughout my pregnancy, and then postpartum. And I want to spend just a brief second in talking about the newborn vaccine schedule that we have seen. As I said, now having a 10-month-old baby girl, and just how grateful I am for the administration and the action that they have taken to reduce some of I guess the better way to say it is to put rights back into with parents. So very excited about that. As I said, I've always loved fitness. I come from a family of athletes, and so my dad, he was an SEC football player. Went on to play professionally in the NFL. All of my uncles played and won Super Bowls. My mom was a Division I softball player. So I grew up in an athletic family. So sports were kind of ingrained in me. It became part of like our family culture. We learned discipline and competition and hard work and the importance of taking care of your body, and those lessons that I learned when I was younger have stayed with me throughout the entirety of my life. Once I went off to University of Kentucky, as you alluded to, be a swimmer. That's where I did some things I'll forever be proud of. I'm a 12-time NCAA All-American. I'm a 5-time SEC champion, actually the SEC record holder in the 200 butterfly, making me one of the fastest Americans of all time. 2-time Olympic trial qualifier. The list goes on. All of that, I guess, just to reiterate the point. It's a lifelong journey to compete at and ultimately be successful at the highest level. And when you are competing at that level, you learn that your body isn't something that you just look at in the mirror. It's something that you use. You have to train it. You have to challenge it. You have to push it. You have to ask it to do things that are incredibly difficult. And I have found that you really learn what you're capable of when you are willing to do that work. And that's one of the reasons that I feel so strongly about fitness. I think, as I said, especially in women today, I think our society, specifically the way that fitness is framed in Hollywood and through celebrities and through elites, they've kind of reduced fitness for women down to aesthetics, right? They talk about weight and what size are your clothes and your waistline and your thigh gap and whether someone looks thin enough and the number on the scale. I think that women deserve a much better understanding of what fitness actually is. And so I just want to encourage everyone, but again, women especially, to lift heavy. Women should build muscle. Women should eat enough food to support the bodies that they're asking to perform. I believe women should prioritize protein. I think oftentimes women believe this lie that they're going to get bulky or they're going to look like a man if they lift heavy and eat protein. I'm here to tell you that's just simply not true. And this isn't about every woman needing to look and to feel and to perform like a professional athlete. It's about being strong and healthy and capable and functional and physically prepared for the different stages of life. I think that's important, especially in the midst of, again, the messages that young women are receiving, kind of in this skinny epidemic that we live in, whether I'm talking about eating disorders or the GLP epidemic. There's this like renewed obsession with extreme thinness in Hollywood, celebrity culture, social media. And I will say I'm not interested in diagnosing someone else's eating habits or looking at a photo and assuming that I know what's happening behind the scenes. But just to acknowledge the cultural message that's being sent to young women, I will say I don't choose to chase skinny. I choose to chase well-nourished. I choose to chase fertility, being fertile. I choose to chase being healthy and functional. And again, I say that now as a mom. I want my daughter to see someone who is strong, who is healthy, who is energetic, and who is capable. To that point, as I said, now bringing life into this world, our 10-month-old little baby girl, she's the light of our life. She's the joy of my world. There's nothing that I wouldn't do for her. I think with the conversations that we're seeing online surrounding pregnancy and postpartum, I think especially with the Lindsay Clancy trial that is going on, there's a lot of discussion around postpartum depression and postpartum psychosis. And I think those are important conversations to be having. And I think women should know what resources exist for them. I'm not here to discount or discredit any of that. But again, I approach this conversation as a woman kind of seeing these stories online. I want to share my perspective in the other side of things where I had a fantastic experience. And I credit a lot of that to my fitness and the baseline level that I had going into, or I guess prior to conception, moving my body, lifting heavy, prioritizing fitness throughout pregnancy, and even postpartum. I had just the most amazing experience. Now approaching the conversation surrounding vaccines. I approached this, welcoming our daughter into this world, very unbiased. I wanted to do the research myself. I wanted to understand it myself. I read lots of different books. I listened to our administration and officials involved in this administration about what was the best thing to do. And what I found in this was that, based off the guidelines of my OBGYN and things that we had been told as women for many decades now, things like, oh, well, don't eat fish because it's high in mercury levels. Okay, but you want to give my daughter, moments after her arrival into this world, vaccines with copious amounts of mercury. Same thing with aluminum. We've made this big shift to get away, from deodorant with aluminum in it. Yet we want to give babies vaccines with 30 times the FDA recommended amount for adults to intake of aluminum. Something just really didn't sit right with me. And so I'm so grateful for the transparency that we have seen from this administration. And again, just how we've seen this administration put the rights back into the parents. And so everything that's been done, whether it's the presidential fitness test being reinstated back in public education, to the recent executive orders that are signed, on behalf of my little daughter, I say thank you. And for having me on this call, incredibly enlightening and stuff that the general public certainly needs to hear.
That was a great message. That really was. She's speaking my language. I worked in an all-girls school as a counselor, and I've had lots of young ladies, anywhere from, 8 to 93 that I've worked with. And you'd be amazed. You don't have to be young to have an eating disorder. You don't have to be old to have an eating disorder. I remember a 10-year-old telling me she had believe it was a broken foot and she couldn't do her sports practice. And she was shaming herself for eating ice cream because she wasn't going to go and work it off. I remember going to a workshop where they looked at the intergenerational transmission of eating disorders. Little girls who were the daughters of women with pretty severe eating disorders were acting out tea parties with their dolls. And the doll would eat and then go throw up. So we really need to look at what messages we're giving. And when she says, I'm not chasing skinny, I'm chasing healthy, I'm chasing fertile, I'm chasing energetic. Absolutely. Because my question would be, skinny to what end? You think you're going to be happier? You think you're going to find the right person who will love you? Because I'm pretty sure that can happen even if you're not skin and bones. You with me, Liam? Are you CPUing? Are you? I'll keep going. I don't know if we're recording or not,
Can you
but
hear me? Testing.
but I mean, anyway, that is such a good point.
Can you hear me?
And the GLP-1s. One of the
Testing.
things that amazes me is that people are willing to take them. We have, again, a new unproven drug. My understanding is that it can cause permanent blindness. And while I did have somebody say, yeah, well, if somebody's 800 pounds, that, okay, there may be a time and a place for someone who is really severely obese. I'm surprised at all the people who might have 10 or 15 pounds to lose. And they're going to put something in their body where we really have no idea what the long-term effects are. But we do know that there can be some not so good short-term effects. And what I have heard is that the weight comes on pretty quickly once people stop taking them.
Absolutely.
Having
Can
said
you
that,
hear
I
me?
understand there's an application for autoimmune
Can
disorders.
you hear
I
me?
know somebody who actually has a functional medicine doctor in her family, so she's pretty savvy about all of this. And she actually is taking it for her autoimmune disorder and finding it helpful. So I guess, it's like anything else, but do your homework. Don't just assume that because somebody says it's fine, it's fine. Do your own research always.
So
Risk
can
and
you
benefit.
hear me? Can you hear me? Can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah, and Raleigh Gaines was at ground zero of that whole transgender thing with Leah
Yep.
Thomas, and
Yep.
so she's covering the spectrum, and she
Yep.
didn't even mention the thing that made her sort of in the public eye. But then
No,
she went
it's
to
true, she didn't.
vaccines. And then she went to vaccines, talking about why would you put all of this aluminum,
Yeah.
you're not supposed to have aluminum in your deodorant. You're going to put like 1,000 times the amount into the little kid. Okay, we got somebody else.
I'm going
coming
to
up
share with
here.
you, everybody, at the end, I'm going to share with Liam right now a link that shows what the ingredients are in different vaccines. So you can just see
Yeah,
for
man.
yourself what the pharma company that made the vaccine says is in it. Off we go. Oh, he looks familiar. He's been on before.
Celebration and watch history being made. Closing the grass loophole and defining ultra-processed foods are two of the biggest wins for label transparency in decades. Thank you, Secretary Kennedy, FDA Commissioner Diamantis, and Callie Means for reminding us that there is an F in FDA, and congrats to Dr. Heidi Overton on being nominated by President Trump to lead the FDA. The fight for transparent food labels is personal. Like 3.3 million Americans, I have celiac disease. Just one crumb of gluten can make me sick for days at a time, and it's like kryptonite to me. Food labeling isn't just about information, it's about safety. Gluten is found in wheat, barley, rye, and most oats. But since 2006, only wheat has been required to be labeled, but not barley, rye, and oats. That leaves a massive food safety gap in our food allergen labeling system. I'm pursuing 3 paths to close it. First, Secretary Kennedy can use his existing authority to issue rulemaking to close the gluten labeling loophole, and I filed a citizen petition with the FDA to do just that. Second, I am working with Congress to change law with the bipartisan FASTER Act. Third, I've asked President Trump for an executive order to declare barley, rye, and oats as major food allergens. Last week, I met President Trump and I personally asked him to issue an executive order. We traded challenge coins and talked about my goal, eating without fear. I told him an EO would be life-changing, and this is a 90-10 common sense issue. An EO is the most time-certain path. It will overcome any FDA concerns about their authority, reduce chronic disease, and help with the midterms. 87 other countries around the world already require the disclosure of gluten-containing grains, including Canada, the UK, and across the European Union. Just like ultra-processed foods are poisoning Americans through the grass loophole, undeclared gluten is poisoning celiacs through the gluten labeling loophole. Since gluten-containing grains are not declared as major food allergens in the U.S., celiacs have been forced to rely on products that are voluntarily labeled gluten-free. Often, these are ultra-processed foods specifically developed for the premium-priced gluten-free market. I've also been working with Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna. In July, Rep. Luna introduced H.R. 9988, the Bipartisan Food Allergy Safety, Treatment, Education, and Research Act, or for short, the FASTER Act of 2026. I'm incredibly grateful to Congresswoman Luna, who's gluten intolerant herself, and I'm proud to have inspired this legislation. The FASTER Act would require the labeling of barley, rye, and oats to be declared as major food allergens on packaged foods in the U.S. The FASTER Act has 12 co-sponsors, but we need more. Go to fasteract.org now to ask your member of Congress to co-sponsor this bill. But MAHA isn't only about fixing broken food policies. It's about asking a harder question. How did we get here? Anthony Fauci's first scientific publication was in 1965 when he was still in medical school, and it was about celiac disease. That should have been promising. But from 1984 to 2022, when Fauci led the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, the rates of celiac disease and food allergies surged. Under his watch, celiac disease and food allergies were dangerously underrecognized and underfunded. NIH's own research, condition, and disease categorization system historically did not even separately categorize celiac disease until 2022. For every year from 2008 to 2020, celiac research spending was reported at $0. Think about the name. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease. For too long, the A in NIAID was silent. That's why MAHA matters. We have to challenge assumptions, we have to follow evidence, and we have to demand transparency. We must fix regulations that have been corrupted by corporate capture for decades. I'm only 13. I don't run HHS. I don't run FDA, and I don't serve in Congress. But I know what it's like to stand in a grocery store and wonder whether something is safe for me to eat. I know what it's like to get violently sick by eating just a crumb of gluten. I also know that the government has failed 3.3 million Americans with celiac for far too long. Help us close the gluten labeling loophole. Help us pass the FASTER Act of 2026 and help make America a country where people with celiac disease can finally eat without fear. Please visit fasteract.org and email your congressperson. Let's make America healthy again. Thank you.
Bravo.
Thanks, Jax. That was really great. And
I like his eat without fear, right? That seems like everybody should be able to do that. And all he's saying is, can you label it? It should be so simple. And it seems like only in the United States of America would something that one would think should be so simple has not been. I admire that kid a lot. And he put something on my radar when he used the phrase citizen petition with the FDA. Hello, yes, of course we can do that. But I never thought of it until he said it. So I'm putting it on all of our radar. You've got an issue with the FDA. You've got something you want labeled. You have, like me, you're obsessed with adverse drug events and you want better labeling and better safety regulations around that. Citizens petition. Anybody can do it.
And he talks a lot about gluten and, the gluten's a weird story, how the industry decided to genetically engineer wheat plants so they weren't so fragile and tall, so they engineered them shorter, which made the gluten molecule more tough, and gluten intolerance wasn't heard about, before that time. So it's easy to get like this sort of sinister thing, like there's this evil thing, happening, but then, some of this is just a result of trying to make the product better and stronger.
Correct.
And then
In the 1950s, they hybridized the wheat. And so that's not genetic. Well, I don't know if it's genetic, but anyway, they did it intentionally to up the gluten content. They have preserved blood of veterans, and they can look and see that around the time that we hybridized the wheat for a higher gluten content, the rate of celiac went up. One of the, let's see, Zach, and I'm not remembering his last name, politician from Iowa, referenced einkorn wheat. Einkorn wheat is available in this country, and it is grown from the seeds that were before the wheat was hybridized to have the higher gluten content. So although it's wheat, somebody like Jax who has a true celiac situation, they're not going to be able to eat it. Other people who may be gluten sensitive but not full-blown celiac may be able to eat einkorn wheat. And you can just go online, Amazon, einkorn pasta, einkorn bread, einkorn, EIN, I believe it's KORN. So that's one workaround.
Okay, looks like they're about to close out. Shall we see the closing?
Wednesday at 4 p.m.
America's children are sick, and moms have been betrayed. The time for empty promises, long past. Now is a time for action. MAHA is the most powerful force of collective action in generations. The grassroots power of moms and activists has created an army of health warriors with more reach than all mainstream media combined. Together, we can end the chronic disease epidemic. MAHA's influence is reaching millions. It's reaching Congress. And that energy, these chain reactions, are working.
How about Operation Stork Speed?
Dozens of food companies removing toxic ingredients.
I plan to lead by example.
MAHA is now.
We're talking about how to change the culture.
The American people want America healthy again.
It is a renaissance moment in health in America.
For health, freedom, and the truth. Join us at MAHA Action.
All right. Let's give them a round of applause.
Absolutely.
I'm using the StreamYard applause. Okay, so even though I'm all right. You want to get that?
Well, Liam, I'm very impressed. Now, here, true confessions.
Okay,
did you pack? You did not pack the crown. You purchased a new one in France. Let me see it.
No, this is a Burger King. Burger King crown.
I love it. Burger King crown works.
Burger King
there we
crown.
go. Put your crown on and be royal, right?
Come on.
All right.
All right. I think that I wish it dessert. Do I got a boom? Wait.
So here's my question for you.
Here we go.
I fired a. Oh, there we go.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I fired a bunch of links at you. Then I accidentally left the whatever it is, and then I came back. Does that mean that the links that I sent you are gone, and I should resend some, or
they're gone? No. I have to get on the train and travel 700 kilometers south to see my little girl. So I have.
All right.
I
Well, I do not want to get in the way.
This was Susan Morodo. Hold on one sec.
All right, Liam, just tell me when you're back in the States.
Okay, so let's see the T-shirt you're holding up.
When are you back in the States?
You were holding up a T-shirt and I cut you off.
Oh, I'm sorry. Right, the Once Upon a Duck T-shirt.
The Once Upon a Duck, a plan to spread love, joy, kindness. They need your help. Are you
Suicide prevention for children. We're emphasizing nutrition.
Right. Yes.
Nutrition, sleep, going outside, playing, and talking with humans. So there they are. They're on Substack. Actually, Liam, the ducks are in Haiti right now. A friend of mine went on a mission trip and is circulating ducks and T-shirts as we speak. So,
Haiti.
Haiti. In Haiti, yeah.
Wow.
And ducks can certainly visit France and have a cup of coffee with you.
They can.
Yeah.
But in France, they are not ducks, mademoiselle. They are
They're-
canard.
And did you see what I sent you about the canard? It's a screw up, but it's sort of intentional screw up. When you want to promote something that might not be so true. It's not vaguely familiar. Can't quite place it.
All right, everyone. Well,
Liam, when
we
are you
did
back
it,
in the States?
Susan. Sometime in September. I'm not quite
Okay.
sure when.
Well, if you're back by September 17th, put it on your radar. Bob and I are going to Children's Health Defense Fund's Advocacy Day in DC. It'd be a great one to
I'm
simulcast.
sure you got some good footage from your last outing. What was it?
There was a suicide prevention in Harrisburg that I went to.
How did that go? Did you get some good good footage, good interviews?
You know what? True confessions, I didn't do any recording. I did make great connections though, and I actually am going to send in my application to be on the board of the Suicide Prevention Alliance.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. Have a great time with your daughter, and drink a lot of coffee for me, and have some croissants with einkorn wheat.
There you go. All right, everyone.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
Au revoir.